So in this video, I'm going to show you the best finishes for resin and wood tables, as well as how to apply each finish with a few examples. Each of these finishes are my go-to finishes and techniques that I use on my custom-made furniture and art pieces for my clients. So the first finish I'm going to cover is personally my favorite. It's Rubio Monocoat Oil Plus 2C Pure. So Rubio Monocoat is a two-part finish. One part oil and the other part is the activator that it's mixed to a 3-to-1 ratio. So that's 3 parts oil, which is in the larger can, and 1 part activator, which is in the smaller can. The oil can also be applied without the activator. It just takes a little bit longer to cure from what I hear. I personally have never tried to do it that way, but I've seen a few videos and a few blog posts where people have, and they say that it works fine. It just takes a long time to dry. So in order to mix the oil and the activator, I use a liquid syringe and I pour the 2 parts into a plastic cup. I use 2 syringes. One syringe is specifically for the oil. The other syringe is specifically for the activator so that I can reuse it at a later date. Once I get it into the plastic cup, I just mix it for 10 to 20 seconds and pour it in the middle of the table. And as soon as I get all of the material out of the plastic cup onto the table, I start in the middle using a plastic spreader, and I actually spread the material from the center to the outer edges. And as you can see, the stuff does a wonderful job at bringing out the grain as well as the surface of the resin. So as a quick tip, I sand up to 320 grit before I apply Rubio Monocoat to any of my tables. The instructions state that you should sand up to 120 grit, I believe. I just find that this is not ideal for a tabletop. Possibly 120 grit could be sufficient for that application, but for tabletops, it just simply doesn't work. So Rubio Monocoat has an advanced molecular bonding technology which allows it to bond to bare wood at the molecular level. It's also available in 40 standard colors plus multiple trend colors. Trend, I believe those colors come out annually, and they continue to stock them even when the year's over. They'll just come out with new colors but continue to stock the old colors from what I can tell. I prefer to use Rubio Monocoat without color, but I may use a color in a future project to enhance the grain of like a white oak or something like that, but I haven't as of yet. So after I apply Rubio Monocoat to the entire surface, I use my hands to sort of get around the edges. I allow it to set up for about 10 minutes, and then I use a rag to wipe off all of the excess. And as soon as I have all of the excess off, I use my RO 125 in rotary mode without a vacuum, along with a polishing pad or a sheepskin pad. Right here I'm using a polishing pad on the highest speed setting. This is going to completely get rid of any excess material that may be on the table. So this is a final step for applying Rubio Monocoat Oil Plus 2C. So Odie's oil is the newest product that I've added to my favorite finish list. Applying Odie's oil is very straightforward. However, it's important to properly mix Odie's oil to the consistency of honey before applying it. When I first used Odie's oil maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, I thought I received a bad batch because the material was just very hard. But once I started to mix it, it changed to the consistency that I expected. This stuff really goes a long way, so I always start with a small amount and add more if I need to. One 9-ounce jar will cover up to 400 square feet of surface area. So first, I use a ultra-fine Scotch-Brite pad to work the oil into the wood. I let that set up for maybe half hour to 45 minutes and use a terry towel to remove the excess. I also use my RO 125 Rotex sander with a sheepskin buffing pad to remove the remaining material that I did not get off with the terry towel. One of my favorite things about Odie's oil is the ability to control the sheen level by sanding grits. So, for example, if I sand a surface with 1200 grit and I apply Odie's oil, that sheen is going to be higher than if I sanded a surface with 400 grit and then applied Odie's oil. So the higher the grit, the higher the sheen, the lower the grit, the lower the sheen. I've used Festool polishes for about a year and a half now, but primarily to repair scratches on my truck. It's very simple to apply. I just put it on the surface, I work it in using my Oro 125, and then I remove it using a sheepskin pad. I like Festool mostly because it takes the guesswork out of polishing with their color-coded system. The orange pad goes with the orange polish, the white pad goes with the white polish, blue pad goes with the blue polish, and so on and so forth. I hear car polish works just as well, but I don't have time to figure out what car polish I use and go through the 25,000 polishes that I see at my local auto parts store. Since I am already invested in the Festool system, I decided to just tap the easy button and use it for polish as well. And to round out my best finishes for epoxy river tables is Stone Coat countertop epoxy. Because this is like the most important part of the whole project so far.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
Don't screw up now.
I thought you were going to pour it in the middle.
Exactly what I'm doing.
Oh, I thought you meant here to go there.
Personally, I don't like this type of finish on wood and resin tables, but many of my clients do, which is why I use it and why I have it on the list. To be clear, I love the Stone Coat countertop epoxy product, but I would not want this type of finish on the tables I personally own, nor do I like applying it. Stone Coat countertop epoxy requires 3 coats when used on resin and wood tables. The first 2 coats are seal coats and cover 1 square foot of surface area per ounce. A rubber squeegee works well to spread the material on the surface of the wood. So these coats do exactly what the name implies. They seal the wood. Each seal coat requires roughly 24 hours to cure, and it requires a light sanding between coats. So the flood coat requires 3 ounces per square foot of surface area. So it's also recommended to apply Stone Coat countertop epoxy with a 1/8 inch square notch trowel. So when I spread the material evenly with the trowel, I come back and I use a chop brush to sort of dab the epoxy to get rid of the trowel marks. As a last step, I use a torch or heat gun over the material, and the heat helps the epoxy self-level, and it also is going to remove any remaining air bubbles that may exist. So as a quick summary, I use Rubio Monocoat Oil Plus 2C Pure on everything I possibly can except for exterior projects. I use Odie's oil on all projects which will not be in a conditioned space, as well as when a greater level of sheen control is required. I use Festool MPA 5010 polishing compound with the corresponding sponge to repair scratches in existing epoxy top coats, as well as on epoxy wall art when sanding to 1000 grit or above. And last, I use Stone Coat countertop epoxy only when my client specifically requests an epoxy top coat finish. Please keep in mind, I like to try new products as I continually improve my craft. So this list may change in the future. If it changes significantly, I'll make sure to create another video and potentially write another blog post about it. All right, folks, so that's it. I hope this video helped explain my 4 favorite finishes for epoxy and wood surfaces. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them down below. I read each and every one of them and try to respond, as well as check out my blog post where I have a lot more detail on this project.